Hey listeners, today's episode is brought to you by eBay. If you want to learn more now, go to ebay.com/EIS. Again, that's ebay.com/EIS. All right, now enjoy the show.
Christine,
Diana,
what brand collabs would you love to see?
oh gosh, what if you combined like Swarovski crystals and Crocs?
Oh my God, brilliant. Diamond gibbets.
Yes.
Mic drop. We get a finder's fee. This is From the Ground Up. I'm Inc. Executive Editor Diana Ransom.
And I'm Editor-at-Large Christine Lagorio-Chafkin.
Today's episode, Finding Profitability. So, Christine, for today's episode, I spoke with Ariel Kaye, who is the founder of Parachute Home. Tell me what you know about Parachute.
Oh, I know Parachute. I know they make really nice linen sheets, and I know its founder.
Ariel?
Yeah.
You guys go back?
A little bit, actually. We were, before she even started Parachute, we had been socially friends, like, back in the day. We had some friends in common when she lived in the East Village of New York, like, right after college.
That's right. Yeah, she lived in New York City and apparently spent about a decade in advertising and marketing before she even founded her company.
Yes. Yeah, we drifted apart during those years, but I did know her for a little bit. She was really nice. So why did you want to talk with Ariel now?
Well, so actually it came out of a point that you and Anu had brought up in your conversation with her about the quote-unquote death of DTC. So I wanted to talk to her because she was a pioneer in it. I mean, she started Parachute Home in 2014, and she was also early to omnichannel, which is on everybody's minds these days too. So about 2 years after founding the company, she launched her first store in Venice, California. So early to DTC, early to omnichannel, so she seems very clued in.
So I feel like there are some, there's probably some lessons for founders that came out of this. Like, she was early to DTC. She had a successful first few store openings, kind of at the cusp of profitability. But where's Ariel now?
Absolutely. It has been a wild ride. And the company has had blips of profitability in the recent past, but it hasn't really had sustainable profitability. And that's something I wanted to ask her all about. But before we got to that, I wanted to ask her about what it was like to step down as CEO.
It's something that I'm very proud of. 10 years into the business changed. And I often am asked, do you still love what you do? Mm-hmm. Because being a founder is hard. There's a lot of high moments and low moments. And, I think over the years, your job changes and evolves, and that's what keeps it exciting and interesting and inspiring. And for me personally, I love the learning and the growth, but there were parts of the business that I also missed. Mm-hmm. Parts of the product development, the creative exploration of the business, the storytelling that I just didn't have as much time, space, or energy for in my role as CEO. And as our business got more and more complex, it was a pleasure to pass off that title and role to our former COO, someone that I'd worked with for almost 5 years at the time, and really felt a true trust with. And it's been an interesting journey, an identity shift, and certainly not insignificant in terms of just all of it. I mean, my role, the way that I, view myself, I mean, I think it took me on an interesting journey of who I am and how far we've come, and a lot of introspection. But I also think it's something really to be celebrated. I'm very proud that I was CEO of this business for 10 years, and also very proud to be able to pass the baton and step into a different role.
Well, you're still the founder.
Yeah.
And your influence is still pretty important. Yes. So what is it like to, I guess, pass on the reins? Like, are you still involved in every decision, or do you just allow the new CEO to do all that?
I definitely give a lot of autonomy to our new CEO, but, I'm still on the board. I'm chairman of the board, and I'm still involved in a lot of big decisions and strategic direction of the business. And that's really important to me. I think the founder has a unique way of bringing a heart and soul into the business, and it's important that that remains and exists and perseveres as we evolve and change. But businesses also evolve and change, and businesses' needs evolve and change. And in many ways, I've been able to ignite my creativity that I was really missing and longing for while still feeling as connected to the brand as ever. So, and I've had the opportunity to talk to people who have been in similar positions and stepped back or stepped down or stepped away. And it's bittersweet. And there's surprise emotions. I think I've really spent a lot of time just being like, oh, today I'm feeling this, and giving a name to it and allowing that to be part of the journey. But it's 10 years in. It was the right
Ready
thing
for a
to
change.
do. I'm ready for a change. And yeah, I'm so proud of 10 years as CEO of Parachute.
Yeah, absolutely. You've built an incredible company.
Thank you.
But it's also interesting because where you started, you were in advertising and marketing in New York City. And then you totally changed. You moved to LA. You're like, I'm going to start a bedding company.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Who saw that coming? Certainly not me. It's a journey that I think is similar to many founders. I was working in advertising and I really loved that business. And I loved the way that my brain got to work in that role. I was on the strategic side of creative. And it took me a while to find a job and a career that actually really felt like I had found my place and I was using my brain in a way that, I didn't get bored easily. And that had been the case in previous jobs. But I also always loved home and design. And so when I was in grad school, I had started an interior design blog. And
oh, cool. What was it called?
It was called Second Story View.
Nice.
I lived on the second story of my apartment. New York.
Perfect.
Yeah. I started in 2006. It was early days, of WordPress. And it was a creative outlet for me. And as a result, I started helping friends decorate their homes and apartments and shopping a lot for products. And I found myself at this intersection where I was surrounded by people that were joining early stage startups or starting their own companies and had my aha moment of what if I could merge my interest in brand building and consumer behavior and home and do something that was more entrepreneurial and allowed me to learn and grow in a different way, and didn't really see myself as the founder or CEO of a company, but over a few months realized that there was this huge opportunity.
Absolutely. And you kind of hit the market perfectly. Your timing was incredible. It was early days in the whole DTC explosion. Take us back to that moment. And do you think you could have done what you did now?
Yes and no. I mean, differently. I launched in 2014. We were first to market in the home space. So there were no other bedding brands. There were no other mattress brands. I mean, clearly other people had the same idea because brands followed soon thereafter. But it was a really interesting time. D2C was established enough that we as a brand didn't have to say direct to consumer means cutting out the middleman, going directly to a manufacturer, adding this value, creating this opportunity to connect with the customer in a new way.
You didn't have to spend that time educating the consumer.
There was the education was there. But in the home category, 90% of purchases were made offline. So it wasn't a behavioral shift that we were up against in terms of getting people to trust and to believe that you could buy these products on the internet. And that was new and that was exciting. But that was also the opportunity that I saw. I was like, hey, this is where we're headed. And as a consumer, I was so inspired by this D2C movement in other categories, whether it was, eyewear with Warby or clothes and Everlane. And, I found myself thinking like there was a lot here.
With every D2C brand, you had that issue of not being able to touch and feel the thing that you're buying. Yeah. And then having to overcome that kind of big hurdle for consumers.
And I think that's where my background actually created an advantage for us because I had spent so many years telling stories and really thinking about how to motivate, inspire, and connect with customers and thinking about insights and truths and things that really move people to feel connected and to build relationships with products and with brands. And that was how I launched this business with that in mind. I was able to say, how do we connect with people? How are they sleeping at night? How could we improve their quality of sleep, which is such a huge thing. If you can create
life-changing.
Exactly. If you can create a better night of sleep, come on. And I knew that that was a great entry point for us too, because if we could build that trust, then we could move into towels and dish bath and other categories throughout the home, which was always the vision. But that trust around sleep was really felt impactful. But I don't know that I could have done the same thing. I mean, Instagram was just getting started. I mean, you weren't shopping that way. The marketing landscape has evolved in more ways than we could ever have time to discuss, And so I launched with a small collection of products. I hired a PR team and got some great launch press and hit the ground running. I mean, we immediately saw this massive reaction from the customer.
But you also knew at the time that sustainability would be important.
Yes.
I remember talking to you years ago about the manufacturing process where I think you were in Turkey at the time. Am I wrong? Italy. Was it
and
always
Portugal.
Italy?
Well, Turkey, maybe by the time, maybe Turkey was part of the story too at that point.
I guess the idea was that you were trying to find organic suppliers all over, and it was a struggle.
Yeah, we were, really hyper-focused on our manufacturing partners, many of which we've been working with now for, 10 years. But the origin story, the manufacturing story, finding partners who did not use toxic chemicals, artificial dyes, synthetic finishes that really were aligned with our vision to create the most premium quality products with the most pure fibers, which in turn creates the best hand feel and in the most long-lasting premium products that previously you could not get at that price point.
So it linked to having a better quality product.
Absolutely, yeah. And for us, we were, I don't know, one of the first brands to really talk about Okotex, which has now become very popular across all industries, which is basically means there's no toxic chemicals throughout the manufacturing process. And, we talked about that before anyone did, as far as I know.
And is it still as important?
Yeah.
I see a lot of brands these days kind of like pulling back from sustainability. One example is Allbirds. We recently ran a story where they were saying how they're not pulling back from the idea of sustainability. They're still actively doing it, but they're not going to talk about it as much.
So consumer research shows that it's not as important to customers as one might hope when it comes down to spending money, and which is just a fact and kind of disappointing, but also there's a lot of things people are looking for. And the reality of prioritizing sustainable products is that they're more expensive. And a lot of people are price conscious or thinking about spend in different ways. We've doubled down, I think, as a brand in continuing to prioritize sustainability. We also just launched a circularity program this summer.
Super Circle.
With Super Circle, which were one of the first, I think, home brands to really invest in circularity. So how we talk about it, it's still one of our value propositions and something that, we believe in as a brand because we believe in the impact that these choices have on the planet. And that's really important for us.
And it's also probably knowing your audience. Like you realize that this is still important for your chief consumer, right?
Yeah, to an extent. But we also hear from our customer that it's not the most important thing, And so I think at some point you make a decision based on what you believe in also. I mean, our team really cares about it, and like when we talk about it internally, there's a lot of energy around this being part of why people want to work at Parachute because they want to work for a brand that believes in protecting our people and the planet. It's just interesting. It's interesting the way that people talk about things that they care about and then the way that they act when it comes to spend or making choices. And those aren't always aligned.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you come up with revelations every day that kind of shock you.
Yeah. I mean, and it's okay, and it's interesting to hear people's perspective. We do a lot of consumer research and talk to our customers a lot to really understand what does motivate them and why they shop at Parachute or why they don't shop at Parachute. And, those learnings are helpful for us as we think about marketing and our messaging and, what we prioritize. But as a brand, it's still
it's got to be number one. And then you mentioned before about sort of like the price consciousness of the consumer, especially these days. And I'm aware that your company also wants to reach profitability soon. How are you going to go about that, knowing that the consumer is so price sensitive these days?
It's a big market. I think it's hard. It's certainly hard. And the market and category continues to be more saturated. And there's brands that Parachute for less, is their whole message.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you about dupes and all that.
And, it just is what it is. And, you can buy sheets on Amazon for $30 and they've got 20,000 5-star reviews. I mean, these products exist. It just makes it more hard, to be honest, and it requires more discipline. And we're committed to quality and we're committed to creating the best products. And our prices have had to fluctuate. I mean, not a ton, but, the cost of cotton and the cost of our raw materials changes, and that all impacts our margin and our business. And our goal is to be a profitable company that is around for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so we're in the weeds thinking about this every day. And
You're like,
it's our
it's a good question.
It's a great question, and there's not an easy answer.
Yeah.
It just isn't. There's not a silver bullet. It's not linear. But I think for us, that trust that we've built with the customer, we would rather not introduce a product if it doesn't meet our standards, or not introduce a product if we can't get the right price because it's just too expensive to make, And
Right.
so we're making choices, and we're lucky to have manufacturing partners who we've worked with for so long that understand what we're trying to achieve and accomplish. And so there are real partners on that. But yeah, it's hard.
Mm-hmm. And you have 25 stores, right? And you just came
Yes.
off a spate of launching like 13.
We had a real retail launch tear in 2022. Yeah.
Woo! Yeah, did you go to all the openings and
Not all of them, but I did for a while.
pre-children?
Pre-children, pre-COVID, yeah.
Well, I still, also going back to the conversation that we had years ago, you had just launched the Venice Beach location. And I think it was your first one. And you were actually on the cutting edge of going from D2C to brick and mortar, or to do omnichannel. What were you seeing at the time that you thought that this was a wise idea?
So I mentioned that, when I got started, 90% of purchases were made offline. And I just knew that there's a reason for that. I mean, first, companies like ours didn't exist, but also people like to touch and feel.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, because of my background in consumer behavior research and my priority to build relationships, not just create space for transaction, was always really important to me. I wanted space to create those relationships and to allow people to touch and feel. And we did a few pop-ups leading up to the launch of our first store. And you just saw that immediate excitement from the customer when they felt our percale, when they felt our sateen, when they felt our linen, when they saw the colors in person, when they got to talk to us about the brand and learn. And we saw those people leave and become brand advocates and evangelists for the brand. And I just knew that there was an opportunity to do it differently also, because one of my inspirations for creating Parachute was to move away from the big box retail model where, it's floor to ceiling stacked products and everything looks the same and wrapped in plastic. And I really wanted this immersive experience where people could learn about the product. And our stores were more than just stores. They were, from
they
day
looked
one.
like homes, right?
They look like home, and we would have events and speaker series and workshops. And we tried to really create a space where people could learn and get excited about the brand. And if they shopped, great.
Mm-hmm.
But if they didn't, totally fine too. And once we started opening stores, we saw the halo effect that had on our online shopping. We saw the connection between the customer buying first in store, then online. And we just saw it being a real additive and profitable way to grow.
We just finished taping an episode with Anu from Female Founders Fund.
Mhm.
She was talking about just the overall climate and like things she's excited about, and just generally speaking, things that she's not so excited about. So one of those things is actually D2C. She's less enthusiastic about. And I think that that's generally speaking the case among investors these days, is D2C is getting less excitement or approval from investors. Are you seeing any pushback from investors or any kind of issue that in that department?
We've been very capital efficient and haven't raised capital since 2018. So we're not in market. So it is a tough time for D2C to raise capital. And I hear that from friends, and it's as clear as day. I think a lot of things are cyclical, and there will be times where things are in and times where things are out, and time where there's a lot of enthusiasm for investors and times where people are shying away. I do think that omnichannel is important, and that's part of why
you're doing it.
We're doing it and have been doing it for so long. And,
Yeah.
I always believed that. And I think the most iconic brands of our time are omnichannel. But it's challenging. And I think part of that is because of how challenging online advertising has become and just the marketing challenges, but also foot traffic's down. I mean, it's a strange time for consumer businesses.
People are kind of crowing about the death of D2C at this point. Do you think that we're talking about the death of D2C?
I think it's going to continue to be harder to introduce new D2C brands to an extent. Maybe not launch and get to, a certain size. But I think to really scale big businesses, it's just harder. It's harder to acquire customers. It's a different time. There's a lot going on. And it's really capital intensive, and capital is really expensive. So I think that's where things get
It's
tough.
capital intensive, but you're saving a lot. You don't have the overhead of like a lease, for instance, or you're not hiring, retail workers who work inside of a store.
Yeah, but you're spending a lot of money to get the awareness.
marketing.
So I think if you have patience to build slowly, which I think is also something we're seeing now, that the expectations around growth have shifted. The prioritization around profitability has become something that you hear from everyone.
Absolutely.
And so, the days of growing hundreds of % year over year they aren't as, celebrated. I think people are celebrating healthy growth and disciplined choices. And that's something that we've always prioritized. And that's worked in our favor, and I think has given us a strong place in the market.
You talked about omnichannel being, something you had seen early on as being the thing that you would look to. What are the downsides?
Complexity. A lot of complexity. Consistent experience across both on and offline is something that is not just a given. Like, you have to really work for that. I really think that people shop in different ways. And so being able to provide a shopping experience that meets you where your consumer is, whether that is online or offline or a mix of both, is really powerful. But yeah, there's a lot of complexity, and we're not just buying inventory for our online site. We're buying inventory for many stores. Each store operates differently. Each store is a different type of consumer. Each region,
Absolutely.
it's 100 degrees on one side of the coast and, 40 on the other. We have to think about
That is so interesting.
the way that we're merchandising. I mean, it's just really complex. I think that's why DTC was so appealing for so long, was that there was a layer of complexity that was removed by just having one storefront.
So really, in the end, the problem with DTC is that marketing, just getting the word out, is the downside, or is too expensive right now.
I think that's a big part of it. And I think the way
Can
that
we stop here
have
for a
brand
moment?
extensions,
Whether it's
Diana, you just touched on something with Ariel about the death of D2C and about scaling big businesses and acquiring customers. Capital is really expensive. And that's interesting because, as you pointed out, D2C helps you save on overhead like leases and retail workers.
Absolutely. I mean, it's clear that there were benefits to DTC, but as Ariel pointed out, the idea is to build awareness, you have to spend a lot of money, and it's getting more and more expensive. And to be frank, the priorities, as she pointed out, have shifted too. So now founders are laser focused on healthy growth and being disciplined and making disciplined choices right now.
Yeah, and I feel like in-store is a really good place for founders and their businesses to actually connect, face-to-face, eyes-to-eyes with consumers. What does Ariel think about omnichannel?
Well, she said it's really complex. So let me give you an example. So she has 25 stores. There could be one in a place that is suffering from a heat wave, and another in a place where there's, winter. And she has to basically fill the shelves in these two very distinct, climates with products that basically don't really adapt well. I mean, they do adapt well, but they're not seamless in a way that like she has been used to with DTC. So it's a lot more complex of an environment. I mean, going from one storefront technically on the internet to 25 is really like a mess.
So interesting.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, I ask Ariel all about how she reaches consumers today.
You built your business from the ground up. Now, let's make sure it takes off. With Salesforce, companies of every size can create the best customer experiences. Start with CRM fast and scale confidently with the marketing, sales, service, and commerce tools that'll grow with you. Learn more at salesforce.com/SMB.
So what are you doing? I mean, like, obviously you're omnichannel now, but you still do want to reach your consumer. I guess put your marketing cap on and tell us a little bit about how does one reach the consumer right now?
I mean, I think it's really important to have a balance between both brand and performance. And I think brand is harder to measure. There's not as clear ROIs always attached to kind of how you are reaching customers. And those are more experiential and top of funnel. I think we are learning from a marketing mix that relied heavily on performance and are now moving back into more brand spend. But I think it's really all about that balance, because if you are acquiring or getting awareness at your top of funnel, then your mid and lower funnel marketing tactics are going to be more efficient and work better for you. But it's kind of like the way that different categories go in and out of favor. I mean, like we were early on podcasts and now it's really oversaturated. We were, in terms of advertisers, we were kind of early with catalogs, and now the catalog drop days, there's 25 catalogs
people love the catalogs
in your mailbox. I love catalogs, but like there was a time where you would get like 2 or 3, and now you get 20 because there's catalog drop days and everyone's using the same catalog providers. So, it's just you're constantly recalibrating. Streaming has been really effective for us. And I think at the end of the day, like it comes down to storytelling and how you can tell stories and reach your customer. But it's just everything's always changing.
Yeah. So what have you done that's super novel? I mean, I know you wrote a book, and I know to some degree you are always producing kind of content around home life and home lifestyle kinds of topics. Have you found that kind of production of content is working for you?
We view ourselves as a lifestyle brand, and I think people come to us for products and also for inspiration. There's like a level of aspiration that's like also attainable that I think people really relate with. And I think the way that we can have brand extensions, whether it's through books or content, are really helpful. I think our partnerships and collaborations have been also very effective. Our relationships with interior designers and hotels have also set us apart. I used to joke that everyone wants to sleep with us. That was in one of our pitch decks. But it's kind of true. We've set ourselves up as a brand that people really want to align themselves with, and interior designers want to do capsule collections with us. And we have done some of those, and they've been really successful. We've been able to work with brands, from Kith to Golf LaFleur.
You have Birkenstocks right now.
Birkenstock just launched. Yeah.
Tyler, the creator.
We're all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think that's fun. But it's a testament to the brand. And that's what I'm most proud of. There's a reason why Tyler walked into our office on a Tuesday and said, "Hi, can you make me some sheets?" And we said, "Well, do you want to do a collaboration?" And he said, "Yeah." That just happened organically.
Wow.
It's fun. It's fun that people see us as a brand that they want to be aligned with. It's nice that you can check into a hotel and put on a parachute robe and get excited that you're on vacation and this brand is also accessible for you at home.
So you talked a little bit about parachute and hotels. How does that work?
So we've partnered with a number of hotels, from like boutique one-off hotels to auberge properties and the Proper Hotel Group. We offer a hospitality line that's different than our line of sheets and towels. Hotels can purchase and we can become part of the amenity program. Mm-hmm. And then many hotels buy our cloud cotton robes as their robes. So it's something that happened organically and something that we leaned into because of the inbound interest. But we love it. And especially with the robes, I feel like, at least for me, when I'm in a hotel, I'm always checking to see who makes the robe. And I guess not all, but at least in some cases, we've got stores and locations where our hotels are that have our robes, and people come to the store and say, I've been wearing that cloud cotton robe and I want to buy it.
Yeah.
So it's just a nice tie-in.
Is there a way to purchase the parachute item from the hotel? Like, is that a thing yet?
No, it's not, but
So how do you get in with the hotels? I feel like people would be interested in this.
They reach out to us mostly. And now, we do have someone who runs our hospitality business who is doing, some outbound. But a lot of times you're getting in as a hotel is being developed. But word of mouth has been huge for us. And, once you're in, kind of like, for example, we are with a few auberge properties. When they're opening new properties, they think of us. And then I think other, hoteliers are visiting other hotels and just, looking around. But it's been primarily organic. There's definitely brokers and people that whose job it is to help place products in hotels. And we haven't worked with someone like that yet.
So I'd be remiss not to ask you about Parachute's mentor program.
Yeah.
What is it? Well, you would explain it better than me.
Back in 2012, when Parachute as a concept and idea came to be, I left my job early 2013. And by the end of that year, I had joined an accelerator program.
Which one?
It was called Launchpad.
Oh, yeah.
It changed everything for me. I mean, I was a sole founder working alone. It gave me a community of other founders. It gave me a place to work. It gave me access to mentors. It introduced me to the people that invested in my company in both my seed and then future rounds. It gave me a place to be. It was so impactful. And I love mentorship. And I love, I know the power of sharing information and creating community and knowledge. And I'm so grateful for my mentors and my community. And so it's something that we launched our own mentorship program called Home for Dreams a few years ago. And it was sort of my way to, it was full circle for me to create a true program, because I think I found that, you know, as much as I love that 30-minute or 15 or 20-minute conversation with the founder, and I can share as much as I can in that small amount of time, actually getting to spend real time, consistent time with someone and really learn about the business. And I realized that we had this whole team of people at Parachute who also had so much knowledge and information and were excited about sharing. And so we created this program. We've now had 4 recipients, and it's a $25,000 grant. And
Amazing.
9, it usually extends to about 9 months of mentorship where founders are able to work with people from all departments on our team. And we've also created a community of recipients so that they have their own program or continued, you know, connection. And it's something that is ongoing for us as well.
To build like a community.
Yeah, to build a community of people who have been recipients. And, you know, our hope is that as that group grows, we're able to, you know, do more there.
Was it important to you to have the financial component to it? Like the grant? Or why?
Because when I joined the accelerator program, I was granted $25,000. Actually, it wasn't. It was an investment, so I had to give some equity away. This is a true grant, so we don't take anything in return. But that $25K allowed me to buy inventory and allowed me to launch. And like without that $25K, Parachute would not be here. And so I think for us, the mentorship alongside that grant allows us to also help define how people are going to spend that money and how to make it most efficient and to be there as a resource as they're thinking about deploying capital and, you know, just how to make it all happen.
Right. It's a little bit easier to do once you actually have money in hand.
Exactly. Yeah. And, it makes it more valuable. I mean, the $25K in the early days is, for me, it was game changing. Right. So I know the power.
Is the program just focused on Black founders?
It is, yes.
Yeah. You glossed over this a little bit earlier, the Super Circle partnership.
Yeah.
What's actually happening there?
Oh my God, it's really exciting and something that we're super proud of. So we've partnered with Super Circle, and essentially we've been talking about circularity for a long time. And in many other categories, like in fashion, we've seen a lot of opportunities for circularity. In home, it's been a harder category to make work. And oftentimes that's because there's toxic chemicals or artificial dyes in the products. It's harder to give them a second life. Super Circle is an incredible company that has allowed us to take back not just our own products, but also take back products from other brands. And so you can go to any of Parachute store and donate used products. We prefer that they're clean, but ideally.
Yeah.
And then in return, we'll give you a 15% off on your next purchase, just as a token of our appreciation for you participating in the program, and also as an incentive, because the more that you bring your products in and the less they stay out of landfills. And that's, again, just a win for people and the planet.
So does Super Circle take the items that are returned?
Yes. So they take the items, and then they have a number of different partners and resources to create second lives. And some of that is, it's just a whole range of products and insulation and rag. There's a whole lot of things that our products can be used for. We also have a circularity program with our down products. So you can return down pillows, and we actually recycle them ourselves and create a recycled down pillow. And people are really into that, but it's just a harder program to grow because it depends on
how much you get.
How much we get.
Yeah. Well, it sounds great. It seems like a wonderful program. I know they're working with a number of different brands, too.
Yeah, they are.
So-
And we're just one of the first in the homes.
Well, this is tremendous. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and I know our audience has gotten a lot out of this. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So sometimes in the entrepreneurial journey, it's good to go back to your roots and never forget that passion as a founder. Looking back, Ariel has accomplished a lot, seizing opportunities in the home goods industry when D2C was exploding. Even now, she's reaching new customers and strengthening her fan base while expressing zeal for the brand that she has built. So yes, Ariel confessed, D2C is expensive and omnichannel is complex. But if you have collaborators like Birkenstocks and Tyler the Creator seeking you out, you must be doing something right.
That's all for this episode of From the Ground Up.
Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice. Also, if you like this episode or have suggestions of what topics you'd like to hear about, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or reach out to us on Inc.'s social channels on LinkedIn, X, or Instagram.
From the Ground Up is produced by Julia Shu and Avery Miles. Editing by Blake Odom. Mix and sound design by Nicholas Torres. Our executive producer is Josh Christensen.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.